Good afternoon. It is April 24th at 4 o'clock. This is the town hall for the 25-26 budget, focusing on town revenues. For some of you, this may be the third time you're in attendance, so this should be repeat information. But if you're new and this is your first time, we'll be reviewing the revenue that is generated for the town. And I will begin my presentation shortly. And can everybody hear me? So as I stated earlier, this is this was the revenue presentation I presented to the council at a budget study session on March 31st. So just to kind of give you a brief overview of what we're going to be discussing, we're going to be discussing the types of revenue the town receives, the authority to collect the revenue, the funds that the revenues are deposited into, and the timing of the revenue. Revenues that the town receives are taxes, and taxes are broken down to property tax, sales tax, utility users tax, and business license tax. Franchise fees, those are the, and then the licenses and permits and charges for services, are otherwise called as user fees. Fines and forfeitures, intergovernmental revenue, use of money and property, that's our interest income and our rental income, transfers and contributions and donations. Looking at our general fund revenues, about 76% is generated from taxes. Property taxes are 56%. Sales and use tax is 5%. Utility users tax is 13%. And business license tax is 2% of our general fund revenue. So as I stated earlier, taxes are 76% of our general fund revenue, broken down by property, sales and use tax, utility users, and business license tax. In history of our property tax, we need to go back to Proposition 13, which was passed in 1978. This Proposition 13 limits assessments to 1% of assessed value and caps annual increases to assessed value at 2%. In 1988, Proposition 98 was passed, and this required a minimum percentage of the state budget to be spent on K through 12 education, and also shifted specified amounts of property tax revenues from the town to educational revenue augmentation funds to support schools. Other propositions that do impact property tax are Propositions 58, 60, and 90, and these were passed in the 90s. And these allowed homeowners to transfer their existing assessed values between spouses, parents, and children, or purchase of a new home. Specifically with Proposition 90, this allowed homeowners to transfer their assessed value from county to county. We were starting to see some Prop 90 reassessments showing up in our 24-25 property tax roll. Some definitions for property tax that I may be referring to throughout the budget time and any future financial presentation. Assessed value, that's the base value that increases 2% per year. There's supplemental property tax, and this is increased due to assessed value due to renovations or a change in ownership. Unitary property tax, which is the assessed value of property owned by utilities. There's T, tax equity allocation, which raises the minimum property tax revenue to low tax cities such as Portola Valley to 7%. VLF, which is the vehicle license fee, which is revenue provided to low tax cities via property tax. ERAF, I mentioned earlier, which is the Education Revenue Augmentation Fund, which is property tax revenue shifted to support school funding. Then there's the real property transfer tax, which is a tax calculated when there is a sale. Current rate is $1.10 per 1,000, and that $1.10 is shared between the county and the town. So of that property transfer tax, the town receives 55 cents for every $1,000. Hopter, which is the homeowner's property tax relief exemption of $7,000 of the full value of a dwelling. And this happens when the market value of the home dips below the assessed value. This was a major problem during the 2008 housing crisis. But as far as the town is concerned, we have very few Prop 8 or Hopter adjustments. We're looking at our annual levies over the last 3 fiscal years. As you can see, the assessed value increases in 22-23 was 4.4 billion. In 23-24 was 4.6 billion. And in 24-25 was 4.8 billion. And the tax levy was a little bit under 3.1 million in 22-23. 23-24 was 3.23 million. And 24-25 is 3.38 million. And as you can see, what is levied each year is at least 7% of the assessed value of properties in Portola Valley. And on average, the net assessed value has increased about 5% per year. And all of this money does go into the general fund. The timing of property tax, March through May, we receive our estimates from Corn and Cone, which is our property tax consultant. In August, the county assessor's office certifies the assessed value. In October, we receive the estimated tax levy letter from the assessor's office. And if there's any difference between what we've estimated for the budget and what the county assessor's office provides in October, we'll do a mid-year budget update in February. Looking at sales and use tax, the rate in Portola Valley is 9.375%, of which 7.25% is the statewide sales use tax rate, which is the base. And then the district add-ons are 2.125%. And now the district can include either the town or the county. So if the county passes a sales tax measure, it does impact Portola Valley sales tax rate. Of the 7.25% that assessed, 1% is received from the state rate by the town. So approximately 11 cents of every sales tax dollar remitted returns to the town of Portola Valley. Also funded through the sales tax is our public safety sales tax measure, our sales tax fund, and COPS grant, which we use to offset our sheriff's contract costs. We also receive funding for Measure A and Measure W for transportation projects. We have 104 registered sales permits within the town of Portola Valley, and the 1% is generated, goes to the general fund, but the public safety earmarked and the Measure A and Measure W do go into special funds that are restricted. Sales tax we do receive on a monthly basis, including Measure A, Measure W, and public safety and COPS. This is a look at the sales and use tax rates throughout San Mateo County. Any rate greater than 9.375% is a district add-on. It could be an additional transaction and use tax rate, or it could be a transportation tax measure, as in the case with the county. Looking, the highest in the county is 9.875%. There's several jurisdictions that are there, and the others, the minimum is 9.375. Looking at utility users tax, our rate is 7.5%. That rate's been in effect since July 1st of 2023. 5.5% reverts to or remits to the general fund, and 2% goes to the open space fund. Utility users tax we do receive on a monthly basis. We have 26 telephone providers, 9 energy providers, and 1 water provider. I've also included the municipal code authority that allows the town to assess the utility users tax to the providers. Business license tax. Since this is a tax, any change to the business license tax rate requires a vote. But as you can see, the minimum is $134. There's some additional fees if you have employees of 30+ hours or 15 to 30 hours. And then if you do not have a not fixed place of business within Portola Valley, then you pay an additional amount to $535. Included in the business license tax is a $4 state fee. It's called the SB 1186 fee, or a CASP fee. And that is to fund the Department of State Architects Certified Accessibility Specialists program. We collect $4, but $3.60 is kept by the town, and 40 cents per each business license is remitted to the state. Franchise fees. Franchise fees is a form of rent that gives the franchisee access to town, roads, and right of way. For energy, it's Pacific Gas and Electric. For water, it's Cal Water. Garbage is Green Waste. Cable is Comcast, and all of this generates or remits to the general fund. Some pay annually, like Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, does remit their franchise fee annually. Green Waste, it's on a monthly basis. Cal-Am Water is monthly, and the cable is on a quarterly basis. And the rates are 2% for PG&E, 1% for Cal Water, and for cable, it's 5%. And some of these rates are set by the state code. And then the garbage rate is 7.7%, and that's negotiated between the town and the provider. So looking at our user fees, generate about 15% of general fund revenues. There's planning and building, where most of our licenses and permits are issued. In public works, we have our engineering fees, facility rentals, community hall rentals, and our field rentals are managed through our public works. We are currently having in a user fee study, looking to have these fees updated early part, or either by June or July of this fiscal year. The Nexus study or any development fees will require a 60-day notice, and those will probably go into effect in October of 2026. So when looking at user fees, the main question that you ask is it a fee or is it a tax? There have been several propositions passed over the years where dealing with this specific issue. All user fees must comply with Prop 218 and Prop 26. Proposition 218 was passed in 1996. It defined a general tax and special tax and the steps to implement them. For example, a general tax requires a 50% plus one to pass, and whereas a special tax requires a 2/3 majority. New taxes or increases or property-related assessments are subject to vote of the electorate or property owners. The amount of the fee may not produce revenues that exceed the reasonable cost of providing the service. And Proposition 26 was 2010. It defined tax as any levy, charge, or exaction of any kind imposed by a local government. This caused some confusion because the fee could fit into this category as well. However, there were 7 exceptions that were established in Proposition 26, and those are the exceptions that we use when it comes to our user fee schedule and the fee study as well. So these exceptions allow for the fee to be increased and not to be considered a tax. And again, the user fees primarily are deposited into the general fund. Looking at fines and forfeitures, this is a result of a violation of the law, usually a traffic fine or a civil fine. These fines are collected by the county, who also establishes a fee schedule. And then the county distributes when the fines are collected, and minus a small administrative fee to us. And these are generated into the general fund, or deposited into the general fund, excuse me. Looking at intergovernmental revenue, these are this is revenue that's generated and received from other governmental agencies, for example, gas tax, and the road maintenance and reimbursement account, or SB1 fees. We do receive these on a monthly basis. There's the state public safety sales tax, which I alluded to earlier, and the COPS grant. We do receive those on a monthly basis, but those come from other governmental agencies that collect the revenue and then deposit it or remit it back to the town. And then also there's federal and state grants and aid. We do receive some federal grants. We have received some federal grants in the past for transportation projects, primarily resurfacing projects, which are hundreds of thousands of dollars. Use of money and property, that's our interest revenue, and also our lease revenue from the parking lots. As you can see, interest is allocated to all the funds via average cash balance. At the time, we had 21.6 million in our investments. That number is now up to over 22 million, primarily in Schwab, LAIF, and LAIF is the local agency investment fund. That's managed by the state treasurer's office. It's a low cost, very secure, very conservative investment vehicle for local agencies to use. Schwab is our primary investment vehicle, where most of our funds are deposited. And then we have a small amount in our Tech CU, which is our general checking account. They have a money market account that is linked to our checking account. We have some money deposited in there. So during each month, we have about 95 to 96% of our cash that's invested in and earning interest in one of these three investment vehicles. Looking at transfers and contributions, transfers are for interfund usually. In some instances in the past, we have transferred some general fund money to capital projects and the gas tax fund to support maintenance of effort provisions. The capital projects are actually to fund some of the capital projects that we've done in the past. Contributions or donations will be used for general purposes or project-specific expenses. We are in the process of drafting a donation policy that will be coming to council next month. And it will be used in conjunction with the PV fund that is being set up by John Goulden. This will provide additional opportunities for residents who want to donate to the town to fund certain projects or just for general support of the town. And these will be brought to the council in the meeting next month prior to the adoption of the 25-26 budget. There are some other revenues that we don't collect but are available to the town through a vote. One is a parcel tax. The parcel tax is a flat rate assessed per parcel and can be used for any type of specific purpose. A parcel tax requires a 2/3 vote and could either be donated or deposited into the general fund or have a special fund set up to take in the proceeds. And then also there's a transient occupancy tax, which is a hotel tax. If the town were to allow short-term rentals, those rentals less than 30 days, which it currently does not, a transient occupancy tax could be assessed on a nightly basis and remitted to the general fund. Again, this would also require a vote. It is a general tax, so it is a 50+1 voting threshold. So that concludes my report on the revenues for Town Hall. We now open it up to any questions, comments. Thank you. There is no one in the building. And we have one, looks like Carolyn Vertonghen. Can you hear us, Carolyn?
No, I just got it. Thank you. I just got to notice that I can unmute. Thank you so much. Um, Thank you very much for the report. I think we have some issues with collecting permit fees, and I didn't remember which report it was on, but I have brought up on several occasions that resolution. It's the right-of-way, it's the encroachment resolution from 2007. And the way I understand it, it's not just for utilities, but it's also for any construction that that does damage. I mean, not by their fault, because they have to access the roads or the public encroachments for electricity or whatever to complete their project. And I was wondering if you had a chance to look at it and to see if that has been charged to all construction, new constructions. The second thing is we have a lot of ADUs that have been built, and I know they're being used on VRBO. So this is definitely a tote revenue that I would recommend to the town. So thank you.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, we do issue encroachment permits whenever there's we do have revenue from encroachment permits on an annual basis. They are issued for construction, absolutely. And yes, PG&E and Cal Water, if they have to access the right of way, they do have to pay for encroachment permits, and we have been assessing those. We have had quite a few this year as well. So we are generating revenue for encroachment permits. And then your second question is we're aware of short-term rentals, but it's just not allowed. It's not a municipal code that they are allowed. There's a whole process that we would have to go through first we'd have to allow it. So we have to update the municipal code. And then we'd also would have to do a TOT measure, a transient occupancy tax measure, to start collecting the revenue. So that is something that we are well aware of. And Mark, if you wanted to chime in on that. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Next up is Rita.
Rita Comus-Whitney. Rita Comus-Whitney, thank you for taking my question. Have we caught up on any encroachment permits? Have we done any research, encroachment permits and whatnot that we did not charge, did not receive from the past before you got here, Tony? And my second question is, the money that we're getting towards schools, is that money then turned over to the Portola Valley School District, or does the town of Portola Valley get to keep it because we have kids that are school age? Thanks.
All right. So I'll answer your second question first. So yes, so ERAF money is shifted to schools, and then it's either, I think it's March or April, they're required to submit a funding report that they're required to, and if they have more funding than what they need, then that is returned to the town. If they have less than what they need, then the assessor will shift more. So yeah, there is a process in place for ERAF to go back and forth between the school districts and the town. But that's all managed through the assessor's office. But the schools are required to provide I think it's called local control funding formula. But they're required to provide that report I believe it's March, and then we receive any ERAF distribution after that. And then on the encroachment permits, we are still researching as we are catching up with our audits. Part of that process is making sure that we've recorded everything that's been processed through our system, that's been deposited in the bank, and just making sure that everything is up to date on there. But I'll make a note for a little bit more guidance on the encroachment permit. Okay, next up is David Cardinal.
Hi there. First, thanks for a great presentation. I've heard this or similar several times, and I learn something new every time. I think it's really clear, and that leads to my observation that I'm kind of disappointed that we don't have better attendance at these things because everybody eventually has an opinion, and the more informed they are before they start saying that their opinion, then the better. So that's not your fault, but as a town, I think if we engaged earlier, life would be better for us long term. So in any case, thanks for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there's currently 5 people online. Here. All right, Caroline, do you have another question?
Yes, I have an additional question. Thank you. Rita brought off the REF, ERAF funding, and I have a hard time understanding how this works. Actually, I've been in the process to work with the schools to get grants for the Safe Routes to School. And of course, I need their participation. But also in the past, we have asked questions to Public Works because I know they were helping the schools with, the trail had some water problems, and I know that Public Works helped them with that. And so since we're asking for a little more transparency, do you know if there's certain restrictions for these ERAF funds and what they can specifically use them for?
Well, first of all, you're not alone in understanding the flip between ERAF and the town. I'm not aware of any restrictions because it once it shifts from the town to the schools, then it's whatever the schools policies and whatever their education code or government code that oversees the schools, it's their process. But they are required to provide a report of how much funding that they need. And they have to do that by March, I believe. And then and as I stated earlier, if what they've received in funding is greater than what they need, then it gets shifted back to the towns or the cities within the county. Now, schools in this area are not just, I know it was mentioned, I believe it was mentioned last night about the schools and declining enrollment. That's across the region and also across the state as well. They're considering more significant declines in enrollment over the next 10 years. But again, Caroline, you're not alone in understanding how this works. And even the schools have an issue with this local control funding formula report that they have to do as well. But again, I am not aware of any restrictions of once they receive the funding of what they can use it for.
Thank you. But do they have to submit a copy?
No, they have to report
Oh.
it to the assessor's office.
All
It's
right.
the assessor that manages the property tax distribution.
Okay, great. You also have the Safe Cops Fund.
Yes.
And in the past, I mean, we have recordings of Jeremy telling the previous manager, telling us during town council meeting that there was a collaboration between Woodside and the PV schools to pay for the cross guards,
Mm-hmm.
the crossing guards. But then we never saw how this was funded. Could this be something through the ERAF or through the Safe Cops Fund?
Yeah, that would qualify. I believe it would qualify as a use of the public safety sales tax or the cops grant. Those are all funded through sales tax. That it's not a component of ERAF. So this is a mutually exclusive funding source. And that's one thing you need to keep in mind. We have all these different funding buckets that we can't cross mingle or unless there's, there's a, like, for example, we can use like Measure A, Measure W, Measure M for transportation. So if we have to do a resurfacing project, we can use those funds along with gas tax to fund that process, and we don't necessarily have to touch the general fund for that. But like a crossing guard, that's also general fund can pay for that. But I believe the public safety sales tax and the COPS grant could fund a portion of that.
In regards to the crossing guards, I believe you would have gotten a statement from the Woodside Patrol, the private security office on Portola Road.
Right, and I have not seen
Okay.
one. I have not seen one.
You mentioned something else that I wanted to ask. Oh, what was it? Let me come back. Let me ask someone else, but you raised something and I wanted to, I
Well,
haven't.
right now, you're the only one with a hand raised.
Oh, okay. What did you mention before the crossing guards? Oh, no, yes. I saw, and thank you for that. So the last paycheck for the traffic consultant, Mr. Krupka, was labeled under Measure W,
Yes,
if I'm correct.
yes.
So
for-
I would like
that's
to
for the-
mention,
That's for the flashing beacon project.
that's right. But Mr. Krupka has been charging our town since 2019 for traffic planning, and nobody has seen any improvement or any progress regarding that planning. And that's why I keep on asking at town council meetings what we're paying for. I'm a member of the PPTS, and we have tried numerous times, not only residents, but members, to get him on board and show us what he has been planning, because nobody has seen it, except for what was submitted August 2019. And that was the results of the study, and he was supposed to implement safety measures for those areas, but we have not seen anything. And then we also have seen that our taxes are used to fund CCAG for all kinds of studies to improve traffic and traffic safety on Portola Road and on Alpine Road. And so again, these are two units, three different departments, and it's all with the same goal, but it's all in planning. In CCAG, for instance, they have been planning issues or traffic issues since 2017, and so has Mr. Krupka. And I hope this is something we can discuss with the town council, because our taxes are being used for the same purpose, but nothing is being done.
Mr. Krupka will be coming to the May 7th committee meeting.
Okay. Great, thank you. I don't know if at the last meeting in March, Mr. Holland said that he could not join that. So he gave the leadership to Pat Bainan, who has stepped up to hold a meeting. I'm not sure if
Okay.
you're aware of that.
I wasn't, but that's fine. I'll still be there with Mr. Krupka, 8:15 in the morning here, I believe, so on the 7th.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Next up is Rita Comas Whitney.
Hi, I just feel so wonderful and lucky for this opportunity. Really appreciate you educating the public and having these different meetings. My questions are, for BPTS, there's supposed to be like a sheriff's person and these reports at each meeting, and they haven't been showing up, and they also haven't been submitting these reports. Do we have anyone to then say to them when we're negotiating a contract or paying the bill? It's like, hey, we're not getting 20% of our service, and we need to either they either need to do that or give us a 10 or 20% discount on our stuff. I don't think that we've been pushing back in the past, but I think at this time, with that department, the way that it is right now, if we don't ask for it, they'll be paying all their money out from their court cases, and we'll still be paying more and more money. And one of the things that I've asked for in the past is if we could start some type of coding project for what each consultant is working on, like the person that you were just talking about with Carolyn Vertongen. But it's like, okay, he's working on this project and he's working on this other project. And yeah, if we see that it was billed to, it's covered by Measure W or something, we know that it was this particular thing. But we have so much overlap. And with the Stanford Wedge project, there were these outrageous bills from the, Good City. But then what do we get reimbursed for? Like if it was coded in a way that we say, okay, this is going towards Stanford, then we know we're getting reimbursed for that part. And then some of the stuff is for the housing element. We're not getting reimbursed for that. Some of the stuff is for residents that are doing upgrades on their houses or building new houses. We get reimbursed from that, from the residents' fees, part of their application fee. But if there could be some coding, I think, it's unfortunate, and we're very lucky to have you, but you're walking into the mess, and there's not a whole lot of trust from before. But moving forward, if something like this can be done, it would be a great help. And people have been asking for it for a very long time. And, I know you're holding the bag and you're doing a lot. We appreciate it. But if this was done for the future, it would be great. I'm sure most of the people in town do their personal finances that way. So thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, I think we do, on the Good Cities, we do track who pays that, whether it's us or whether it's the customer, the clients. And we know every project that is assigned to Good Cities, so we can track that. I think with the sheriff, you're right. None of us are totally happy with what we're paying and what we're getting, and that's all going to come up when we start talking with them again, which will be soon, as we start looking towards the future of the contract. We know we're with the current contract, I think, Tony, right through 26, 27.
Mhm.
Yeah. But there's no reason we can't.
Well, no, it goes through 25, 26.
Yeah. But we're going to talk to them about what reporting they're doing, what they're actually doing. Good Cities, we have a better track, I think, even with some of the other consultants we have. We may be spending more than we should, which is what we're looking at very much. And when we get to the expenditure side, which is coming up in May, in the evening, right here, I think May 7th, right here in the evening, on the expenditure side of things, we can look at that at that point. But I've been personally kind of keeping track right now of the planning consultants.
Thank you. But if the residents, I'm sure now you're doing that for yourselves, but with the residents, when we look at the warrant list, we just see an outrageous charge. And there's no little asterisk saying, oh, 50%, this little one asterisk means that we're going to get 50% back. So if there can be some transparency for us, that would be great, because it has been, really high cost in the past. Thank you.
So I'm going to give you a little cheat code. On the warrant list, there's a report that says payment by fund. And any Fund 701 is the project applicant deposit. So any check that's paid out of, or any amount that's paid out of funds, you might have, say, Good City might show up in multiple funds, but the portion that's in Fund 701 is what is being funded by the project applicant's deposit.
Thank you.
Caroline.
Sorry, this is so interesting and I really appreciate it. So two things, and before I forget, it's the transparency and the sheriff. So on transparency, Mr. Linder, as you remember, one of the residents, Betsy Morgan Taylor, she made reference to other cities, and I believe it's Woodside and Los Altos, who have the same program, the OpenGov. And she was explaining how they show how much is paid for by the town, and then how much that project is refunding the town. And apparently, I have not looked at it, but she was explaining it's very transparent. And she was wondering if this is something we could use in our town. And then the next thing is of the sheriff's department. This is an ongoing issue. This has not started with Sheriff Corpus you know, she was our sheriff here. And then before that was Christy Bell. And we had to organize Neighborhood Watch, or yeah. Is it Watch Neighborhoods? But every time we called the police, they had every excuse not to investigate anything. And this is something I bring up at the PPTS as well, not only because we do have Kevin Welsh, who has been assigned as the commissioner, but we don't know what his purview is. I mean, he has a list of it, but I don't know if he has authorization to request anything. There has been some burglaries, and we never find out what the result is, and hopefully they have caught them. But it's always, and that was the motto of the last town council, resident resiliency, where we had to come up with the videos, where we had to come up with more alarm systems. And at one point, you know, you give up. There's a lot of people who have given up to speak up, because all these agencies, they work together, they get our taxes, and nothing gets done. And so hopefully the two of you can implement the old policies that we're used to make this community a safer neighborhood, because a lot of people want it. And hopefully the two of you can recommend that to town council. So thank you.
So we seem to have gotten a little bit off topic. This was a topic on revenues. So
Yes.
if there are any more questions, please limit them to the presentation and revenue. Seeing none, thank you all very much for your attendance, and we will see you next month with expenses and May 7th, 4 o'clock here. And it will be on, I believe it's on the calendar already.
It's on the calendar, and it'll also be just like today on
Okay.
video.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.